Hi, I'm Zach Waters, and welcome to another episode of WTF-STOP Photo Talk, where I chat to photographers about their life and connection to the world through photography. Don Tonge was born in 1950 and raised in Bolton, Greater Manchester, England. He left school at 15 without any qualifications and initially worked in the building trade. In the late 1960s, he developed an interest in photography, capturing candid moments of everyday life in his hometown, Bolton. He joined the Bolton Camera Club in the early 1970s and began entering photography competitions. Tonge's passion for documentary photography led him to work as a freelance photographer, shooting press and portraits. He spent about 8 years as front-of-house photographer for the Octagon Theatre in Bolton. In 1981, he won a photography competition organised by Granada Television, which helped launch his career as a press and theatre photographer. Tonge's extensive archive shows the daily lives of Boltonians during the 1970s and 1980s, including images of children playing in the streets, condemned houses and local markets. His work is characterised by its powerful and sometimes humorous portrayal of life in a northern town. He has also documented British Seaside resorts since 1970. He has had 4 publications with Cafe Royals: Bolton 1970s 1, Bolton 1970s 2, Bolton 1973 and Bolton 1980s. Tonge's work has been exhibited in numerous exhibitions throughout the UK and is featured as part of the British Cultural Archives touring exhibition, A Celebration of Life in the North, 1970s to 80s. I was really happy that Don took the time to have a chat with me. And we delved into a lot of the things I mentioned in this intro. We did, however, establish one thing. I was unsure how to pronounce his surname.
One thing I want to ask is your surname, T-O-N-G-E. Do you pronounce it Tongue or Tongue?
It's Tonge, T-O-N-G-E, Tonge, as in your mouth, tongue.
And then I had a lesson on how to speak Boltonian.
I started saying bus, and really it's buzz. B-U-Z. You know, we say buzz, I'm going for buzz, you know, but it's bus. I've started saying but, and it's book. You know, I'm on the change, I think.
We talked about his time when he met the photographer Humphrey Spender.
2001, Humphrey Spender did a talk in Manchester at the Corner House then. So I went down there and I took my work time book, listened to him talking. He was about 91 then. He signed the book eventually, I had a bit of a chat with him. And I bought another book there for a friend of mine, Jeff Davis, was a Bolton Camera Club member and a very good photographer. We're both on the same line, same page in a lot of ways. Jeff had just become president of Bolton Camera Club. And at Humphrey Spender, I told him this. I said, could you dedicate it to Jeff Davis on his becoming president of Bolton Camera Club? That's 2001. And he did. He written it all out by hand, and I thanked him for it. And you know, I had a little chat with him. Other people were around him, obviously. And he came up as a very calm, settled, happy, contented man.
And we also briefed on his time when he had tea with the Duke of Westminster.
And I was sat next to the Duke of Westminster. And so the tea's going around, dead civilised, you know, teapot, milk. And the Duke of Westminster says, turned around to me and says, do you take sugar? I said, yes, Your Grace, thank you. And he passed me the sugar bowl.
So the day came for a chat. And I asked him what he was up to.
Well, it's okay. I've been out this morning, bought this headset. It's very windy here in Bolton. It's bright, sunny now, and it was raining earlier. And that's about it up to now.
You're born and bred in Bolton yourself?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, born and bred in Bolton, yes. Still living here. I'm a proud Boltonian. And we're in Greater Manchester, apparently. But 90% of Bolton people still belong in Lancashire. And that's where we prefer to be, in the Red Rose County, Lancashire. But officially, we're in Greater Manchester. Although I love Manchester City. Manchester city centre is a brilliant place to be and go.
There's that credibility of living near Manchester, isn't it?
I say that Manchester and Liverpool is just satellites of Bolton.
One thing I want to ask is your surname, T-O-N-G-E. Do you pronounce it Tongue or Tongue?
It's Tonge, T-O-N-G-E, Tonge, as in your mouth, tongue. You know.
See, you've got a funny way of pronouncing tongue up there. See, I say tongue. I call you Don Tonge. Really, you're called Don Tonge.
Yeah, well, that's how it's spelled. It's spelled with an O and not with a U. I mean, it's like people down south will say, "Oh, I'm buying a house." They mean a house. HOUSE, where they say HISE, house. You know, it's a bit, our accents, our dialects. I mean, in Lee near Bolton is only about, well, it's not 10 miles away, but they have a different accent than Bolton. It's all thee, thy, and thou. Where they're going, that type of thing. And in Bolton, we might say, "Oh, I'm going down yon," and they wouldn't say that there. Down yon mean down's yonder,
Scone debate, isn't it? Yeah, I say scone, and you'll say scone, won't you?
No, maybe scone. I mean, I've started saying bus, and really it's buzz, B-U-Z. We say buzz, I'm going for buzz, but it's bus. I've started saying but, and it's book. I'm on the change, I think.
I just think you lot in Manchester are trying to sound posh. You've been documenting Bolton since the 60s. You combined, would you just say you're a street photographer?
I think I would really, yeah. Very late 60s I started. It took me 2 years to take a decent photograph, I think. Late 60s, and I got really interested. I got the photography bug. And I was out all the time, taking photographs. And I don't know what it was that started it off. I think probably when I was working in the building trade as an installation engineer, that's a pipe lagger, we had a job at Ilford Films in Moberley. I think where they manufactured the paper and the film. And they had a staff shop. And I had a look in one lunchtime. And I bought, it was on offer, a kit, an Ilford Instamatic in a box with 3 flash cubes.
Yeah.
And it was cheap, so I bought it and I did a few shots with it, and got the film processed. And then from that, somehow I got hold of a Polaroid camera, and I started taking pictures of the family, my sister, my mum, and the dog, and our lodger. And you would take the vet, and then it would come out, but you had to seal it with a squeegee, run a chemical over it. That was to fix it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have just disintegrated the emulsion. So you had to seal it with this. And then I used that, but I didn't keep buying the film. So then I went and I bought a Helena Paulette electric camera, which is like an Instamatic. I think I paid about 15 quid for it at a Mother's camera shop in Bolton, which are still there, Mothers of Bolton. And I got that and I used that. And then I took my first good picture with that. Well, I thought it was a decent picture. And I looked at it and I said, "Oh, I like that." And then I went up to a Zenith B, a clunky click, a big, solid, heavy Russian camera.
I had one.
Yeah, I think everybody had one. But this was a Zenith B, not the top of the range Zenith. Interchangeable lenses, but I only had the one lens.
The screw mount, wasn't it?
Yeah, screw mount, yeah. I started taking pictures of that, and then I moved through up to Praktika, Olympus, and then I got an old gnome enlarger, 20 quid, it was second hand off someone. He had a ray lens and a few dishes and trays. So I set up some kind of dark room in my bedroom, plenty of dust in there. And I bought some film and I processed the film, written all the instructions down. And to my amazement, every negative was beautiful. And then I started printing them in my bedroom, and it was amazing. It was that magic, seeing the image come to fruition, come to life in the tray.
How old were you then?
I would say I was about 19, 20, about 20.
So you went from Old Spice to Stop Bath.
Yeah, yeah, and
you were combining this with work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You started making a living and start trying to sort of find your way as a business in photography.
That was quite a bit later, actually. That was about another 10, 15 years from this.
I'm going to find out all about that in a minute. In front of me, I've got 3 books. I've got Seaside, I've got The Roundhouse, and I've got Good Day at the Races. You have Shot in the North, which you self-published through Blurb, didn't you?
Yeah, very expensive. I only had 20 copies made myself. I finally got rid of the last one a few months ago. You can still buy the book on, like I say, I said book then, I mean book. You can still buy the book on Blurb, but it's not cheap.
When Blurb came about, it was the sort of transition, wasn't it, for people self-publishing their books. The bottom line was it was really quite expensive. I've seen some really interesting books on Blurb, which are really, like yours in particular as well. And I first spotted you on Blurb, but the books are like 60 quid, and it sort of doesn't figure things for you selling them, does it?
Yeah, I think it comes out to about 38 quid on Blurb. But what I spent on doing them, I think it up to about 500 or 600 quid. You know what I mean? And had a dummy done, etc. You know, but I was quite pleased. The quality is very good at Blurb.
Yes, it is. They are
excellent.
And so I was just going to round that off. Really, you've got 3 books, little book zines published with Cafe Royal books.
Oh yeah, that's a big surprise. I applied. I thought they might do one, you know, but Craig runs it. He did 3 books with. I was over the moon with. He had a lot to choose from, and I'm 95% happy with his selection. You know, he's a great promoter. You know, he promotes like photographers. I mean, I would never have been published, but you know, Cafe Royal books, they have such a far-reaching effect. I think they've got selections in MoMA, you know, Museum Moderne in New York and London, the Photographers Gallery. So I was chuffed because eventually when we're not getting any younger. So there's something there, you know, that part of my legacy, I suppose. There's something been done.
I think he's done a good job, Craig. And I'm interested with Cafe Royal in 100 years. It's really sort of created a massive legacy for British-based photography.
Yeah.
And it's going to, I think in the next 100 years or so, it'd be a really important sort of period, which Craig sort of instigated. What I want to do is I want to take you back right to the beginning. I want to find out about the person who became the photographer and how photography evolved in your life to where you are now. You can jump through a few of your books and how they came about, but just go back to the beginning when you were a young lad.
Right.
Kicking stones off the corner street in Bolton. Go right back and just tell us how it all happened.
Well, in Bolton, obviously. I'll go from about 7 or 8 years old. We moved onto a council estate in Bolton, Johnson Fold. My mother, we lived in a room before that. My mother, my father, I can't say dad, father and my sister. And we lived there for a few years, but father being what he was, I'm trying to be kind, you know. We left, my mother kept leaving father, well, about a dozen times, say. And eventually, the straw that broke the donkey's back. He was a violent man. We moved out completely, and we went living in rooms with me, my sister, and my mother. One room's in a house with quite a few families, Hampden Street, Bolton. There was a strong smell of urine, and I don't need to go on about that. So from there, eventually, my mother was able to get a house, very cheap, a terraced house. No bathroom, you know, toilet at the end of the backyard. So I was about 10 or 11 then. Started at primary school. Then I went on to secondary modern school, Bramber Fold. And then was there a few years. And then we moved out of Penn Street where I lived. Then we moved back up to Johnson Fold and into a place called Gisborne Avenue, which was about 500 yards from where my father still lived. You can imagine, but so I lived there and that's where I had my first dark room in the bedroom at Gisborne Avenue. And I would just go out, take pictures. I started work at Hick Hargreaves. I left school at 15, no education. We had, a careers officer, advice on careers. And I know my letter, I found out later, my application for a job to Hick Hargreaves, I have 15 spelling mistakes. You know, they should have vetted that. So I wasn't happy about that but a guy who worked there used to be my swimming coach because I swam for the school. I swam for Bolton, the hometown, for 2 years, freestyle and backstroke and butterfly. Did that. And you have to be careful, I lose my thread sometimes. After I started working at Hargreaves, I was there about 9 months. I started in the stores. You know, with the other guys from the school who started in the apprentice school where they learn the turning, the engineering stuff. And I was in the stores handing out tools. That's like a dead-end place. I was a bit thick at school, no doubt about it. But what annoyed me, at school, they fast-tracked the guys, the boys, who were pretty clever to start with, but they wanted to make sure they got the results. Probably made the teachers and the head look good. But guys like me who were falling behind, they didn't bother about. I mean, there was one time I was sat at the desk at the maths lesson, and I just folded my arms, sat back, and then the teacher said, "What's wrong, Tom? What's up with you?" I said, "I just can't do what you put on the blackboard, sir." I said, "I don't understand anything about it." And he looked at me and just carried on walking. I thought I was going to get a slap in the back of the head because there was violence in the school. I got quite a few that got knocked about a bit by particularly one member of staff. That's another story. Anyway, so started at the car greaves, and it was £2.18 shillings a week. And then I moved into the foundry because they wanted a guy in the foundry, a young fella. I was still 15, and I started working in the foundry. It was all the old hand moulding, like not just since Victorian times. And everybody there saying, "Get out of here when you can," they said, because they was going to close down because mechanised moulding was going to be taking over. And I normally, so I was looking for a job. I didn't know what to do. I think I got ready to be 16 or something. And my mother met a fella in Yates's Wine Lodge. She was with somebody, I think. He was looking for a mate, like, to go on jobs in the building trade, but it was being a pipe lagger, an installation engineer. So I started doing that, and the first week I worked 7 days. We were on 7 days a week, and my first week's wage was 15.5 quid. Well, from £2.18 shillings to 15.5 quid, it was, well, I was a millionaire, wasn't I? So I started, I was 16, 17. I got a motorbike, and I was riding to Fleetwood on a job because this other guy I started with, he started his own, another young lad, which was his partner's son. So I got thrown out for no particular reason, except that he wanted his missus' son to work with him. So myself, I had a motorbike, and I applied to another firm, and I got a job, and I was working on ICI Fleetwood. So I was going to Fleetwood every day on my motorbike. I was 16 then. You didn't need crash helmets in them days, 1966. So I did that for about a couple of weeks. And then one night, we're on Johnson Fold. My mum said, "We go and get some chocolate." So I get on my motorbike. I thought I'd go to off licence, ride through the estate, showing off. Anyway, I hit a car head on, broke my leg, and I was in plaster for 6 weeks, right up to my thigh, which was a bit of a pain, a bit of a nuisance. Anyway, after that, I started working again and back at work, and I went to, have I mentioned I went to Ilford Films? Yeah, I felt tomated on. Yeah, so I did that, and then still taking pictures, sometimes at work and this, that and the other. And then I knew about Bolton Camera Club, and I literally plucked up the courage to go down, because I had a few prints then, about 1210, something like that. And I was going to take them down, get some opinions down there. So I went down one night. It was a competition night, and some of the work was outstanding. It was really, really good. But there's 2 FRPSs, ARPSs, masters of photography, these guys were. I looked at my pictures, and I looked at the stuff what was hanging on the walls, and I don't think I even showed anybody. And I went home that night, and I think I ripped half of them up. And then I concentrated then on to getting better quality pictures, started reading photographic magazines then, get these practical photography, amateur photography. And there's articles there about print quality, developing films, etc., etc. And then I started entering a few competitions in the photographic press. And to my amazement, I did quite well. I won some, come second and third in some. But there was a magazine, it was called Photo News Weekly, and there was a weekly assignment. You had 48 hours to take a picture, develop the film, make the print, get it in the post. And every week they had a scoring system. You had 1 to 20, sometimes you wouldn't even get on that. And then eventually I got climbing up that, and I got pretty near the top, and some did it for 2 or 3 years, some years. But that was a good training ground, because they'll say you think of like water, shadow, garden, or building, church. So you had to stick to that theme and come up with a picture, and you had 48 hours to do it. take the picture, dev the film, get it in the post to them. And it was quite a challenge. Tell your name going up. It was good. And I had quite a few pictures. In the camera club, this other chap, he was an architectural photographer, medium format, high quality stuff. And mine was 35mm, lit, suit and whitewash. That was like lit, all black, all white, different things like that. And some of my candid street photography. And we had a joint exhibition, which because like two people from the camera club doing opposite things. And that was quite popular. And then I had a lot of pictures and I thought, I'll wait around to try and get an exhibition or something like that. I'll show some of my pictures. Granada Television, they ran a competition. They ran a competition for, it was called In Focus. Anyway, it was like a weekly assignment thing again. And I entered it. I did quite well, actually, because I just get a mention nearly every week, or some weeks I didn't get a mention. Anyway, eventually they had the result. And eventually, I was happy to say I won it. And there was, I believe there was about 40,000 entrants. And I was a buzzing one. I had a TV camera on me and all this stuff. And they came round to the house, filming and stuff. And that was good. And my prize was working on an assignment with a professional photographer. I was an amateur photographer. So they put me with a professional photographer, and we went to Haydock Racecourse, and they filmed it there, and they filmed it just one day's filming. It was quite good. The adrenaline was flowing in me, and the cameras were on me, but I really applied myself to it. And recently I just scanned a lot of the negatives about only a couple of years ago. And that came into my book, Good Day at the Races. Nobby Clark, over lunch, he liked some of my stuff. And I knew you were a professional photographer, a theatre photographer and press, quite well known. And I was talking to him and he said, yeah, I like some of your work. He says it is commercial. And I thought, is it? I thought I'm just for entering club competitions and magazine competitions. No, and he says, well, tell you what, there's this Manchester Theatre group, Manchester Youth Theatre, that was it. Jeff and Hazel Sykes were running it then, and so they're looking for somebody to cover their productions. So I contacted them, went there, nervous as anything, did a few productions with them. They were okay, the pictures, HP5 at 800 ASA.
Totally different setup.
Yeah. Then, like I said, it was all available. It was stage lighting. You couldn't use flash or anything like that. But, what you should do, you shoot through dress rehearsal, And anyway, so that went on, and I didn't do any more. But I went into the Octagon Theatre one day. Like I said, I was looking to show some of my pictures. And they had this chap there, Stanley Whittaker. He was handling all the press, etc. And he said, there's a room up here in the bar area. So I ended up showing some small 8x6 pictures along the wall, and everybody seemed to like them. The street stuff usually at Bolton. And then their front of house photographer, Bad to Kill, and there was looking, somebody said, let me do it. So I said I've had experience as a theatre photographer. I had bloody hell. So I went there and started shooting the dress rehearsals, and I was there for about 8 years. 3 artistic directors doing all the Shakespeare season, and not a clue about Shakespeare, me. I was just looking at the pictures. But they let me on press days. I could rearrange some of the shots on the press day. I used to like it, the theatre director, yeah, that's a good idea. Did about 3 productions for him. Then for some reason, the point where they both turned around, and I said, no, if you do it like this, turn around, you've got it. The director said, I like that, we'll keep that. Because I was still working in the building trade at that point. I was like half freelancing, doing the theatre work and trying to do a bit of freelancing, even though I was submitting pictures to magazines, getting them knocked back 9 times out of 10. So I'm doing that, a big front of house, this, that, and the other. And then I started working for a magazine, the Turton scene, which is the local area of Bolton called Turton. And they also had a Blackburn scene as well. So I was working for them. But all the time I was getting the cutouts and little releases and everything that got printed in the local press that I did get, which I've submitted because I never worked for them. And then eventually I got my NUJ card. Now, in the 1980s, you had to have a sponsor go in front of a panel in Manchester, in my case. And the panel reviews your reviews your folio or your cuttings, this, that, and the other, to prove that you're in editorial photography, which I weren't really. And then I got my NUJ card, and then the local press could commission me to go out and do jobs. But then I was very busy doing all sorts, just check presentations, school plays, and it is just bread and butter stuff. And but I was making a living, and I eventually moved over, left the building trade altogether, and went off as a full-time freelance, famine and feast, sometimes busy, sometimes nothing. And I ended up working for Bolton Council, eventually Lancashire County Council as well. And I was shooting weddings. I've done more weddings than you've had our dinners. And weddings aren't easy. People might, not knock a wedding photographer. But you've got 2 hours to come up with the goods. Horrendous weather conditions sometimes and awkward people sometimes, Well, it's actually, if you work with actors, you can work with anybody.
There used to be good money back then.
Well, yeah, they were for certain, but I wasn't expensive at all. I think I've always been too cheap, but I've put my heart and soul into it, and, but then my personal stuff, took a dive really. I left the camera club scene. To be honest, I spent too much time in the pub because I was still knocking about with my working mates, because that other little book I did, my first little zine, Roundhouse, about a working mates club. I still going in there, and I still see the other guys today. I was drinking with one couple of weeks ago. No, 2 or 3 of them together, and we talk about the old days, this, that, and the other. But they're my old friends, and your old friends are your best friends. But I was still doing that, and I spent too much time in the pump. My personal photography really took a back seat.
The Roundhouse in the 70s, there's a lot of drinking, pubs, clubs, and stuff like that.
Oh, not so bad.
You've got a really quirky style. You understand design, without a doubt. You understand composition. You understand the interaction between environment and humans and the theatre. You see it, and you can see that in your work. I love the quirkiness in your pictures, the sort of theatre, the things coming together in the frame. What were you looking for when you were looking at people and looking at the scenarios going on in front of you? What were you trying to bring together?
Good day at the races. I think we were shooting for about 6 hours, and that was it. I just looking at everything and photographing everything. Not panic shooting or anything like that, but I just looked everywhere. I went into places like we're after a race. They'd have a weigh-in. The jockey had to have a weigh-in, and you're not allowed in there. And I didn't know that. I just walked in and started shooting, and then I got thrown out. And it made Nobby laugh. He said, "You can't go." I said, "You did do." Brian Ferry was there, the Roxy Music guy.
I noticed in the book, I saw him, yeah.
So I saw him, but I knew I had to take a picture of him. So I went up to him, straight up to him, because at the background, he was like a bit of a snarl looking at me. And then I walked up to him, letting him know I'm not press. I said, "Look, I'm an amateur photographer, and I'm working with a professional today, Brian." Mr. Ferry, I called him. I said, "I love Roxy Music." Mr. Ferry. I said, "You mind if I take a couple of shots?" He nodded, says, "Yes, okay." So I got only shot about 3-4 shots of him. Then I left him alone then. And that was a bit of a, but I put it in the book, But then Nobby Clark over lunch, he said, "Well, Brian Ferry gets photographed all the time, but you went up to him and got a picture of him, I said, I just asked him, It
was that innocence.
Yeah, that's it. A bit naive, bit innocent, adrenaline flowing. Yeah.
What lenses were you using? Then
I had a compact. I used to use an Olympus RD, a compact. I wish I still had it. A cracking little 35mm. It's used, I think, aperture, automatic, semi-automatic, aperture priority only. And then it'd be auto. So I'd use that as a small pocket camera, which I've taken most of my pictures from the 70s, 80s with that camera. And then I had an SLR. It might have been an Olympus with I'm not sure it had a zoom lens on it. I think it might have been a 135. And I might have had a zoom, I can't remember. But it might have been a 135 and the compact, just the 2 cameras.
Yeah.
Just, running film through them. And
it's interesting listening to you when you said the turning point for your approach to your photography changed when you started comparing your work to other people and the guy at the camera club, and then you sort of took on a more in-depth approach and you started immersing yourself in the work of other people. And what interests me, purely because initially, when I first looked at your work, where it was geographically Bolton, I wondered if Humphrey Spender and the mass observation had some influence on you and what you took from that. How did that have any sort of part of your progression as a photographer?
Well, I knew about Humphrey Spender casually. This is all, don't forget, this is like pre-internet. There's no big World Wide Web then. And it kept coming up, and some would talk about it. But then there'd be the odd article in the photographic press. And then my friend who was from Bolton, I took an interest in it. And I had the work handbook, where you did a great review of it, by the way, Zach, on the camera on YouTube. It really good. And I liked a lot of his work. And the locations he used, it was Clarence Street in Bolton, the same area, and I shot in the same places, even where they had their HQ. And I shot a lot of my stuff in that area where he went, just by coincidence. I took a lot of my stuff in the 1970s there as an amateur, and probably he did a lot of stuff there as well. And then he revisited, I believe, in the 1980s, and I didn't know that. But it went on, and he did it 2001. I'm jumping forward quite a bit now. 2001, Humphrey Spender did a talk in Manchester at the Corner House then. So I went down there and I took my work book, listened to him talking. He was about 91 then. He signed the book eventually. I had a bit of a chat with him. And I bought another book there for a friend of mine, Jeff Davis, who was a Bolton Camera Club member and a very good photographer. We're both on the same line, same page in a lot of ways. Jeff had just become president of Bolton Camera Club. And that's Humphrey Spender. I told him this. I said, could you dedicate it to Jeff Davis on his becoming president of Bolton Camera Club? That's 2001. And he did. He written it all out by hand. And I thanked him for it. And I had a little chat with him. Other people around him, obviously. And he came off as a very calm, settled, happy, contented man. And talked really fluently and friendly. And you just everybody around him just in awe of him in a way. But I did take some pictures of him there and then. I didn't really intended doing that, but I did do. I went to with another friend, and I've got him on one of the shots. I lost the negatives, and I only found them about a couple of years ago. The next one, I printed them. Now there's a little bit underexposed, all that lot, blah blah blah. But got run them through my neg scanner, and they come cool scan with Lightroom and Photoshop. You can adjust the levels. You can sometimes make a thought piece out of a size here, and and I've found anyway. I've printed them, this, that, the other, and I've got them now. But since digital, I found that a lot of my negatives, some are slightly under and slightly over. It's just the way it happened. Although I did use a Western meter, especially on wedding, doing insane light reading. But many a time, point and shoot with an aperture priority. You forget sometimes you're moving into shadow, into sunlight, into a building, out of the building. And then you just press the shutter first and look at the settings after. And that many times. Since going digital, now I can go back in my archive and looking at some dodgy looking negatives, put them through this system and edit them, and you can bring them to life again. And a lot of my work is the 70s, 80s, 90s, and I had about 20 years where I was in the pub, something like that.
You did the Seaside book. Spender went to Blackpool, getting the working man's leisure time when they were in Blackpool, having the holidays and stuff.
What I did, I bought the Martin Parr book, Seaside. Cafe Royal Books had re-released 500 copies. No, it was a book, Seaside. It's a new book. Cafe Royal Books did it. It's not a reprint, it's a first edition. And they're sold out now. And that, I looked at it, and fantastic. Martin Parr's early work is fantastic. Really good. And I must get some more of his early stuff. I've got a couple of, I'll go off the thread. And that inspired me. It was Martin Parr's book that inspired me to look at my Seaside pictures going back through the decades. And I found out I had more than what I think. And there's some I've left out, and I've found some more similar ones, some good ones since going back through my archive. But No, I didn't. I never thought of Humphrey Spender like that. That you never influenced. I liked his work a lot, but there's so many other people doing good stuff.
And have you had any association with Martin Parr? Because I've seen you've got some pictures of him in your archive. Have you had a...
No, I can't say I've met him. He signed a book for me. I said book again. Book in Bolton. I've had a couple of books signed by him. Strange and Familiar. It's an exhibition he curated, and that book I bought, he got me to sign that. And I took a picture of him. I asked him, so Martin, can I, he said, yeah. So I took a picture of him. I quite like the photograph, actually, because I cut half the book off and it just says Strange and Familiar. Martin Parr's early work and his later work, it's debatable. The different opinions on it, like there is on everybody, but I love his early stuff. So he signed that for me. But his Seaside work influenced me to do a Seaside book. No doubt about that. Without me buying that book from Cafe Royal Book, I don't think I'd have done Seaside. But I know a lot of books, photo books, they have a running theme through it, like a narrative, all the way through it. And my first book, Shot in the North, and I put in, it's just a selection of my personal favourite photographs I've taken. There's no rhythm with it or anything, but Good Day at the Races, there is. In my Seaside book, it's okay, there's a bit of a theme through it. There's the water on everyone, Mark.
I love all your books. I do particularly like Good Day at the Races. I think it's some really good stuff in there. You mentioned Parr, we've mentioned Spender. Who has been a real influence in this sort of, as a photographer, in their style with your work? Who really sort of got to you?
There's so many. As you know, it's a difficult question to answer. But I'm recently been looking at some Elliot Erwitt. Some of his stuff is fabulous. And Elliot Erwitt, what a career he's had. I think he's in the White House, photographer. I think he was, shooting the president and all that stuff, and what went on the White House. And he's done such a wide spectrum of stuff, a wide variety of photographs. See, I'm going a bit, losing the thread a bit. I like Robert Frank's Americans, but surprisingly, it's Cecil Beaton. I've got a book of Cecil Beaton, war photographer, war photographs. Some of his portraiture, I know he get these big fancy sets, he set it up, and I think he was a member of the Bloomsbury group in the 1930s, then Aviol, Toss like who, but I love his work. Some of his portraits and stuff is fantastic. And obviously, Cartier-Bresson, like Bill Brandt stuff. There's so many. Eugene Smith, but what a dedicated man that Eugene Smith was to his work. Spent 3 years in Japan shooting, I think it was some chemical poisoning of people. And people like that, they're really, I'm not knocking myself, but I've never really committed myself to one particular project long enough. As I look through my archive, I look at photograph lots of children playing in the streets in the 70s, 80s, 90s, but now you can't point a camera with a child playing in the street. Well, you don't see any playing in the street anymore. Shirley Baker, I've got a Shirley Baker book, and I met Shirley Baker. She had an exhibition at the Lowry, giving a talk there, and I got a couple of photographs of her. She let me photograph. I got a lovely letter back from her, from sending the picture to actual prints. I think that they weren't digital files then, so I'm not sure. No, they weren't digital. They were actual prints I sent to her, and she sent me a lovely letter back.
The book you mean was the Eugene Smith book, is Mini Matter.
Mini Matter, yeah, that's it, and. But his essays were I think they were for Life magazine. They're the famous The Country Doctor, and I think he did set one or two of them up in a way, which, if you're looking for, slightly a thing, but they still had fantastic pictures.
Yeah. I think we got to you went down to the pub bit.
Yeah.
Where do we go from the pub now?
Well, usually a nightclub. Honest to God, I spent too much time in the boozer. And there's nothing, I've had more hangovers than you've had hot dinners, let's put it like that. It's nothing to be proud of. It's just the way it was.
It must have been about 80p a pint, was it?
I I remember when I left school, I left at 15, but I was started drinking when I was 16. I think it was about 1 in 10. This was before decimalisation. About 1 in 10, we were all mourning when we went up to 1 in 11. But I did spend too much time in the boozers, in the nightclubs, because after you'd done a wedding, PR shoot, a local check presentation for the local press, all you want to do is sit down, watch telly, or go for a drink. Last thing you want to do is go walking around the streets taking pictures. It's weird how it is, and a lot of people can mix it both, but I didn't.
What year was this? Where were we then?
That was probably all through the 70s. All through the late 70s. But that's when I was doing my street stuff. I didn't really start freelancing full-time till about the mid-80s, because I'll be doing 50%, say, freelancing photography and 50% in the building trade. But I was a bit flexi time in the building trade. I used to get a job, it's like 500 quid, but do a job. It might be in Glasgow, it might be Blackpool, it might be anywhere. And that's all you got, and that included your expenses, everything. So if you got it done in 5 days, you got 500 quid. If you took 5 weeks, you got 500 quid. So I would do that, and then I'd try and mix in some of my freelancing at the same time at the Octagon. It used to make me laugh. I'd be in the Octagon Theatre doing a dress rehearsal, and I'd be like, "Oh, darling, yes, it was marvellous interpretation of such a body." And then day after, I'd be under a tank, effing and blinding, covered in fiberglass, piss wet through. It was like I was living in 2 parallel worlds, two lines. I was 2 people. I like to think I can mix in that society a little bit, and but I'm still working class bloke, But when I was working for the Bolton Council, I did loads of jobs. Mayor after mayor after mayor came and went, and I was still there. And I got on with all of them, really. And one day, I think the Duke of Westminster, he was opening this shopping mall in Bolton. And now I photographed it for the local council, etc. And then it goes back to the town hall. And then I think it was the mayor said, "Oh, Don, are you staying for tea?" So I put my camera down and I sat at the table. Mayor, some other dignitaries from the building. And I was sat next to the Duke of Westminster. And so the tea's going around, dead civilised, teapot, milk. And the Duke of Westminster says, turned around to me, says, "Do you take sugar?" I said, "Yes, Your Grace, thank you." And he passed me the sugar bowl. So that's my fame to claim. I photographed one time in the 80s. Chris Bonington was up in Bolton at Rivington. I think Northwest Water might have been taking over this set of reservoirs, and a beautiful place, Rivington, near Bolton, Rivington Pike, not far from Winter Hill. And I thought, well, I'm going to try, because I was trying to freelance and submitting stuff in. So I thought, I'll take a picture of Chris Bonington. Anyway, Benny Rothman, he was of the mass trespass fame in the 1950s, Kinder Scouts. He was going to be there with Chris Bonington, one of the dignitaries and one of the celebrities type of thing. So somehow I got hold of Benny Rothman's phone number. And I rang him, and I got through to Benny Rothman. I said, Benny, so I said, I believe you at the Rivington thing tomorrow with Chris Bonington, etc. He says, "Oh, yes. I said, "What time are you going to be arriving?" And he says, "And what time's Chris going?" I said, "Well, I'll be arriving." So he said, "But Chris is going there earlier." I said, "Oh, no." So yeah, he's doing a bit of climbing, but at Anglesark. So he said, yeah, because there's some quarries at Anglesark. Says, "Oh, yeah, right, thank you." So what I did, the day after, I went to Anglesark early and goes up, climbs my way up, wending my way around there a little bit. And then suddenly I go to the edge, and Chris Bonington's coming up. He's coming up the crag, up the side of the quarry, and I stuck my head over. And I says, "Hi, Chris." I said, "Do you mind if I take a couple of shots?" He said, "Oh, no, carry on." He's climbing up, and I got some pictures of him walking up. And he says, "Oh, you're too old for this, Bonington." And he's just done Everest. He was sending my letters from Everest to the Observer, which I used to read his letters, etc. His adventures at Everest. And we get to the top, and he ended up with a rope round him, and this, that, and the other. And I got some more pictures of him, and I was really pleased with his pictures. So I didn't go to the event. I rushed back home, developed the films, made some prints. I rang the newspaper up with The Guardian, I think it was. I didn't ring anybody else up. And they said, yeah, they're interested. So I took the prints I'd made over to Manchester to get them on a circular. Used to send them by wire in them days.
That's right.
Yeah, and they wired it down. Anyway, The Guardian, the day after they used it, they used the picture. I was really made up. They'd use the picture, no name credit, photo Don Tonge. And, well, you can imagine it. You get a real buzz out of things like that. But it was a lot of work, and I don't think it got paid a right lot, but it was, it's like getting your name around. And I ended up I did a few jobs for, 1 or 2 jobs for the Times, got a couple of pictures in the Times newspaper, etc., etc. But I didn't pursue that too much because I was busy doing weddings, local press, and going in the pub. And then time just went on, and that's how it is. I just carried on working as a freelance.
The buzz of being printed never stops, does it?
Oh, yeah, it doesn't. I've still got my spreads. I've had some in the photographic press, from the 1970s, 80s competitions, and some of them like 2-page spreads, which is good. You still get a buzz out to seeing your stuff in print. And what I've started doing now is I'm trawling through my archive, black and white negatives, is I'm started having prints made. Because there's nothing better than a hard copy print in your hand. You know what I mean? To look at.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Or on a gallery wall or something like that. And I've started now having 16 by 12 prints made. And I keep getting and they're building up now. So there'll be something there because everything's on hard drives and dongles and DVDs, etc. And it might just get lost and never get played or whatever. But a physical print could be there for a long time.
Ian Berry said to me about 20 years ago, he said, you can't delete an egg.
Yeah, no, you're right. You can't delete an egg. But that's why we have backup, don't we? I mean, I've got cloud backup and I've got on an external hard drive backup because I have had a computer crash and I lost some stuff. The worst thing is I've lost some negatives I can't find, you know what I mean? And that's another story.
Do you find the last 10 years is a sort of coming together with all your work in a way there you could get now your work out there and you feel that your legacy is being shown and people are taking notice of all the work you did back there? How important has this all been for you?
It's been, very important, since the World Wide Web and the internet and social media. It's been a big thing for me, actually. And I've only embraced social media in the last 3 years. I'm still having trouble with it now. Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And I like to submit it, but some of the comments I've had off some of my work, it's been really good and encouraging. And I've actually sold a few prints from it as well, actually, and promoted my book. It means now I'm not invisible. And to a lot of other photographers, they would be otherwise invisible, because if nobody knows about you, so I believe in self-promotion, because if you don't do it yourself, nobody else will.
Absolutely.
And the Facebook thing, when I first started uploading a couple of years ago on Facebook, some of my stuff from the 70s, especially, some of the comments are hilarious, and I've cut and pasted a lot of the comments, and I want to use them for a project I'm thinking about. People have put names to faces on my prints. Made some people very happy. They've never seen the picture of the late fathers or sometimes the late children. It gives you a bit of a buzz, it's spreading a little joy. The thing is, the people of Bolton have been my source for photographs for decades. There's quite a few Bolton Facebooks, and I paste to them all. And I just love reading some of the comments. I post on Twitter and I post on Instagram. All the comments that I went into Bolton Art Gallery, Bolton Museum and Art Gallery, nearly a couple of years ago, and I took some pictures in, and I took some of these comments in, put them on A4 and printed them out, and they loved them. They loved the comments. I mean, I got an exhibition in a small room in the Bolton Art Gallery, which was a real buzz. I didn't think I was going to be interested in exhibiting. Because nobody knows me. I'm not a name like Homer Sykes or, what's the other guys called? My other favourite photographers. There's, but because it was local, and Bolton Facebook, local people, and what they did, they got a lovely room. They laid it all out pretty good actually, and they printed some of the comments on the wall. This was in 2021, and it was only on because of COVID. It was only on. It got delayed. It ended up 6-week run, and I think for about 2 of those 6 weeks, the gallery was closed altogether. And when it was open, it was mass only, 2 people in at a time. And it was, a bit disappointing, but it was still good to have it there, Eventually, I'd like to have another exhibition, a bigger one, and more stuff in, just to promote Bolton and probably promote myself a little bit because I like the thought. I mean, I sell on Etsy.com prints, which, and they're pretty cheap, actually. They're too cheap again, me. And then, but British Cultural Archive, they've got some of my photographs in the BCA, British Cultural Archive shop, and they sold a few of my prints.
Yeah.
And they're after 2022 is the year they're going to have a permanent space in Manchester.
That's really exciting, though.
It is really exciting. I mean, North East have got, is it Grain? North East, what's the gallery? Amber. North East have got a gallery.
Yeah.
The late Tom Sturrett had an exhibition recently.
Yes.
So he's passed away recently. Brilliant. I've got one of Tom Sturrett. Sorry, Sarah Label, but anyway, like Liverpool have got Open Eye and Bradford have got the Impressions. So Manchester should have something really good. And what they do, they sell a print and they kick 50% towards the, for funding towards this new space. Yeah. And then you get 50% paid into your account, you know what I mean? So I'm a pensioner now, you see, and every penny helps, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think your work is really important. I'm very surprised you haven't been asked to submit a whole series of prints for some archive to the Manchester Library or whatever it is, or something like that. And I'm sure something like that will come. How do you think people are going to look at this work in 100 years? What important part of British culture do you feel you portrayed?
Well, I think, like I say, the people of Bolton is mainly working class. Working class, kids in the street playing. It was a time when a time of innocence, really. And they say, we could leave our front door open, but it's actually true, you could. When I lived in Penn Street, you could do that. People were always walking to one another's houses. And in summertime, they'd all sit on the streets, on a chair with a cup of tea, chatting to one another. Big, that's how it was. There was more community spirit in that time. Kids like Shirley Baker's picture, 60s, 70s, kids skipping in the streets, old ladies. He said you didn't need CCTV then when you had old women stood gossiping at the doorstep because they knew everything, who were doing what, where and when. Well, I think because even now, the platform shoes, the flared trousers and the tank tops, rings are 70s. So even now, everybody's into nostalgia, no matter how young you are. Even 20-year-olds now thinking what they were doing when they were 17 in Ibiza or whatever. Nostalgia is everywhere, and everybody's into nostalgia. And anybody says they're not, I don't believe them. What we got today, I mean, in 100 years from now, today's modern time, there's face masks. There's obviously the net and the mobile phone, the smartphone. God, the world is passing people by. They've got a smartphone in front of the faces continually. And I embrace technology, but I only use social media on my laptop. I will not use it on my smartphone at all. Just on my laptop and my desktop computers, I'll do social media. Otherwise, that's it. Because it's like you could get like a family driving through the Lake District in, say, autumn, when all the leaves are turning gold, red. Mum and dad's in the front, brother and sister in the back. They both got their head in the smartphone, talking to their friends where they are, but they're not seeing where they are. They're telling where they are without appreciating the beauty of the Lake District, say. And I think life's passing a lot of young people by.
What you're looking back, from the moment you innocently picked up the camera and started documenting the world around you, what was behind that?
I think we all want to express ourselves in some way. And I couldn't write. I was no good at school. And I was taking pictures for a couple of years before I got one picture of these children in a parade. And I went, I put myself down to their level. I was like on one knee, say, and I took a picture of them, and these were saluted in different positions. I thought, I like that picture. And then that was very early 70s. And then that's when that's when I joined the camera club and learned about from FRPS's Masters of Photography about composition, grain tone, the tonation of grays, and that's when I really knew that that's what I wanted to do, be a photographer, take photography as an amateur, be an amateur photographer. And it was everything to me, because I'd be out even when I got married. I got married in 1971. I was out with my camera all the time, everywhere, point and shoot. I was taking photographs of everything. I got the photography bug. That was it. No intentions of making a living from it, but it was a photography bug. And anybody in them days, but you're a novelty. If you walk around the streets with a camera around your neck, kids used to shout out, "Hey, mister, take me picture." And obviously you did do. And there was nothing seen in it. Nothing bad about that. Not like today, you couldn't do it. So you're a bit of a novelty, and they just saw things and just took them. But some of the things I've been printing recently, pictures that when I took at the time, I don't know why I took it, but now because a few decades have gone by, they're a lot more interesting now than they were then. And I found other odd things. And I found like you have a 36 exposure in a film, and I'd probably get through to about 33, 34 shooting something. So the film's going to run out. So I was like, I've got to use these 2 frames. I'll take that there. Oh, look at that. Then you'd wind the film back and put another one in. And some of them last frames on many a roll of film are very interesting for some reason. And I didn't plan anything, because I'm basically a point and shoot camera guy. I'm not technically minded. I'm completely self-taught. Even now today, I've just got a cracking new camera, and what it will do, it does everything except make the tea. The X100V Fuji. It's a brilliant camera. And I still use it as a point and shoot camera. I'm not into 4K video or anything like that. I'm not interested. And I'm going to set it onto monochrome, because everything I convert from black and white, I shoot in colour now. I usually convert it to monochrome, black and white. So some of these settings they've got now, these recipes for, there's about 3 or 4 black and white settings. You can put in a red, yellow filter if you want,
I do really find the transition with photographers in the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. I'm interested in that bit where they just did it, because now, like you said, we're in a point-and-shoot culture. Everybody's got a camera. But then, seeing a camera was a big thing, and nothing was accessible. You had to really search and find and look up books and so. I was always intrigued to what made you just pick a camera up? What was that point where you were inspired to pick something up which you probably knew nothing about?
Yeah, it was that time when I picked that Instamatic up. So I don't know why I did it. Maybe it were on offer. Maybe it were half price. I don't know. I picked it, and then I just took pictures with it, knowing then that I wanted another camera, just taking pictures of family, dog, and whatever. And I don't know. And then I got it was a gradual progression, to becoming a full-time freelance. But it started very slowly and went through very slowly till I became a full-time freelance. But I enjoyed, I must admit, when I won a competition in the camera club, and then you're exhibited at LNCPU, which is Lancashire and Cheshire Photographic Society's annual exhibition. You get a real buzz seeing your picture on a wall. And the camera club had an exhibition every year, and you see that, and it's really good.
That's awesome. What's your plans for the future then? What's next for you?
I've got an idea. All these comments, there's quite a lot of comments from the people of Bolton, particularly about me 1970s pictures. I don't want to dwell in the 1970s because I still get out shooting occasionally. I want to bring it right up to 2022, and we're not there yet. I've got an idea for a book spanning the decades in my hometown, Bolton. but it only have appealed to Bolton people, so I can't see a publisher being interested in that. Because I think Darry Lewis, he always says that he gets 1,000 submissions for books every year. And one of the first things he says, it's got to have like worldwide interest. You know what I mean? It's got to have, a narrative, a theme, something like that, a story running through it. But it's got to be like universally interesting instead of just, my little village or my little town, But I think I'm going to go ahead and do it on my own town. But I want to incorporate some of these comments with some of the photographs. But then again, I'll do it. I might have to just self-publish it. But with self-publishing, I've done it, not my self-publishing, but totally by myself. Right, I've got some help with my writing, because my writing's pretty abysmal, really. Got all the right words, but I just can't get them in the right order. So I need help with that,
Don, I think what your work's screaming out for is one book which charts your record. And I think there's plenty of people out there who could help you get that. And there's no reason why you couldn't put a book like that out. I think it'll happen. I think ways and means, and we'll talk more about this away from here, and I'll see if I can help you. Because I do think, and I was scratched my head a few times why there isn't the sort of complete works of you in one book. And I think it should happen. I think it will happen. And you say, well, it needs mass world recognition. It doesn't. This is about documentary. This is about British culture. This is of a lot of books like this at the minute in terms of life's works and stuff like that. And this should have that status. So we'll talk more about that. I will do a review for this year of these books as well, but we'll talk more on that. Don, man, it's been a pleasure. And I've really enjoyed listening to you, and I've listened to your stories and just hearing about what makes you tick and, the ups and downs of life and stuff. And it's been a real pleasure. And
thanks for all this, Zach. I was very apprehensive about doing this because, like you can tell, I'm not well read, and I'm one thing that bugs me. I didn't have a good education. I'm not blaming them. It's got its benefits, but one of my big regrets is not having a better education. But I know you can self-educate yourself later on in life, but if you're spending half your time down the pub, you can't do that. At school, I was at bottom of class in everything, except 1 year I come top in history and top in religious instruction. All right, religious instruction, and I'm an atheist. So then that surprised me. But like I say, I think all these things are meant to mean something. If I'd been a well-educated guy, I'd have been in another job in an office and direction, and my life would have taken different. No regrets.
Oh, thank you, because had you gone another way, we might not have seen these pictures. So your education has come out in another way, and it's come out in the way you visualize the world. Don't knock yourself, mate. You've done yourself proud, This will be your legacy. Really pleased that you did it. This is your contribution. Let your pictures talk.
Well, if you can edit this right down and make some sense, you're a good man, Zach. You know what I mean? Because I do meander on a bit, and I do get mixed up. But I'm not a good speaker. I know that. I've been asked to do a talk. I just not got the confidence, for some reason. Thank you, Zach. It's been a pleasure. Talking to you.
Pleasure for me too. All the best, mate. Take care.